Welcome to Whole CEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. For the last 4 decades, she's been a high performer in all aspects of her life, a student athlete for 2 decades, high performer as a 15-year leader in HR. Lauren Ammon, lead performance and talent management in multiple organizations, watching others break through their mental barriers to accomplish their goals, ignited her passion for professional coaching with high performers and athletes to maximize their performance and impact. She believes we have everything we need to succeed. It's just a matter of removing the mental clutter that block us from seeing our full potential. Lauren, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, so much. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I just love what you're up to in the world. Jumping right in, I know that you and I are both passionate about physical movement. So why don't you tell me about how that ties into all the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, well, as you so graciously said, I spent 2 decades, nearly 2 decades as a swimmer. And, growing up in that world, literally at some point, 7 days a week, 10 practices a week, just moving my body in all aspects of it all. And it really has just driven a lot of my life because it's so ingrained in me. And once I got out of it, it was kind of that, oh God, what am I going to do now? Right. So then I took up running. I took up marathon running. Yeah. And then when that became too much for me, my body, I went to half marathons. And then when I had 2 kids and that wasn't, as feasible anymore, I went to do group exercises in a boutique. You may know Orange Theory Fitness.
I love it.
Yeah. And then COVID hit and it was kind of like, oh my goodness, how do I keep this a part of my life?
Right.
So I started following people on Instagram, had equipment at my house, and then just started weightlifting. So it's like every point of my life, I've just found a different way to move my body.
Right.
And it's just so incredibly important to me because it optimizes everything else.
I love that. I mean, I love working with people as coach that are former athletes because I think you guys have like the determination, you have the willpower, and you have that ethic. So it's like, I find that people that are successful in one area of their life can apply that to their weight loss, which is what I do, or their fitness. It's just when you're already driven to get to that level in sports, it's a great background to jump off in. I'm sure you'll be successful in everything that you do in that endeavor because it's like, who else is going to get up that early in the morning and train 6 days a week for 20 years, except for like a serious athlete? So I want to talk to you a little bit about something I know we're both passionate about as well, which is resilience, and how with all the stuff we've been through, and it's been a lot, how can we build resilience?
It's a really great question. And it's really all about just continuing to lean into the experiences that you've had, right? Resilience is all about figuring out how to keep yourself, your body, your head, your emotions in the game. And that's by leaning on what you've already experienced. Going back and really thinking to yourself, what is it that I've made it through, right? We often get stuck in this trap of, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this. But then when you stop, you take a pause and you kind of look behind yourself and say, okay, what is it that I've gotten through so far?
Right.
You can pinpoint areas in your life where you thought, oh, I'm not going to make it through. And yet still here you are, right? So, exactly. I'm still standing. I'm still here. I can make it through anything. And part of it is really being able to maintain a very neutral mindset. And by that, I mean, almost not getting so caught up in the negative and the positive of your life. And, one of the things that I often talk about is that every moment has its own life, right?
Right.
It's a part of your life. It matters. It has importance, but it doesn't define you. And that goes for both good and bad. So when we come to a point in our lives to really understand, oh my goodness, how am I going to make it forward? It's
Yeah.
continuing to lean into what you've already experienced and going through all of the things that you learned in each of those experiences.
Yeah.
Like truly sitting down, right? Whether you're a writer, whether you're a talker, whether you're whatever, and saying, okay, in some of the highest moments of my life, what skills did I lean on to make it through? And on some of the lowest moments of my life, what skills did I lean on to make it through? And just continuing to practice those things. And if things didn't necessarily work out well for you, how
Yeah.
then do you shift
Yeah.
and say, how might I use this skill in a different way to propel myself forward?
I love this topic. This is one of the reasons I really wanted to launch this podcast, because I really feel like we've all been through so much. I've been through so many ups and downs, and then the pandemic hit, and I really felt like, what better time is there right now than to just be brutally honest and tell people that they can get through this, and this too shall pass, and to build resilience. And I love your stacking theory on stacking on wins that you've already had, and you already got through something. How can you get through this? Is there any personal experience that you want to share that you've been through?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest quote unquote failures in my life. I won't say failure because I don't necessarily believe in failure. I believe that everything is a learning experience.
Right.
So I went to college as a political science major, thinking that I was going to go be an attorney.
Right.
And that's what my path was on. I had no other thing. That's what I was bound and determined to do.
Yeah.
Well, when I graduated college and I took the LSAT, which is the entrance exam into law school, I didn't pass.
Right.
And it was one of those moments of, oh my goodness, I've never not been able to accomplish something I set my mind to up to that point. Like it was one of the most devastating moments of my life. And for the longest time, I wasn't able to admit I didn't get into law school. I used to say things like, oh, law school just wasn't for me, or, you know, I just started a different career path in my life. Well, no, the truth was I didn't get in. And,
Thank you for sharing that.
And I scrambled, right? Like any 23-year-old, however it was all the time, not knowing what to do.
Right.
And I remember sitting with my mom, bawling my eyes out. Like, what am I going to, how do I, right? I couldn't even find words to say, I went through college. I was successful in terms of, you know, my grades, and then I couldn't get into what I thought I was going to do. And it was that moment that I just stopped and thought, well, my life isn't over.
Not at 22, hardly.
Right. I'm 22 years old. I have the world in front of me. I mean, while I may not know in this moment what I want to do, I have so many skills and interests that if I just sit down and explore what it is I like, what it is I liked about college, what career paths outside of being an attorney might align to that.
Right.
And that's how I got into HR, you know, just making a small shift in terms of, you know, really going into the employment law side, really trying to understand that. But the fun fact is, once I went into HR, employment law was not my favorite part of any of it.
Of course, that sounds boring.
But it was one of those moments where, you know, in that immediate time frame, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How am I going to move forward? I spent all this time, money, effort, and energy to go down this path of being an attorney, and now it's not there. But then just literally taking a step back and sitting with my mom at the time and thinking, okay, what about what I learned could I take with me moving forward now that law school is not part of the equation?
I love that. Thank you for being so honest and open about that, because I really want to inspire people to have a spiritual Zen attitude like that you did. Like you went through all the motions of feeling sad, freaked out, and then you got into action, where it always has to propel you into action. And I love also the fact you mentioned on our last topic about not getting too excited about the wins or the losses. So it seems like you've come to sort of a Zen place about things and calm. So I think when you calm down after all that stuff, it's like, I've always gone through this. I can get through something else. I have these skills. How can I apply them? And I want to ask you another question. How can we get to a higher performing network?
Yeah, that was also part of my, it was part of my early actions that I did once I started getting into HR, right? So from a people point of view of how do you connect, across your network? How do you connect within your cities? And so I started taking some very intentional moves. But it wasn't until much later in my career, actually just in the last few years, as I launched into being an entrepreneur, of
Yes.
what it meant to truly upskill and up level your network, right? So when I first started, it was all about, how do I connect with people on my level? How do I kind of get some inroads into my career? But now that I've gone into a completely different realm, I recognize the opportunity to really network with people who are well outside, quote unquote, my bubble. And by that, I
Yes.
mean, who have accomplished so much, or so much more than I have at this point.
Right.
And to gain a little bit more insight and experience and knowledge and mentorship from those who have already walked a path that potentially you want to, or have walked a path that you think you might,
Yeah.
and really just up leveling and really shooting for the stars in terms of going after people who are like, oh gosh, they're kind of scary. I don't know if I can connect with that level of person. But back to our topic on resilience, reminding yourself that, one, they're also just another human, right?
Right.
And two, you've done big things before. We've all done big things, right?
Absolutely.
And we can all sit here and say, well, my life's not that exciting. I haven't accomplished that much. That's not even remotely true. There's 7.8 billion of us on this planet. We have all accomplished really big things,
Absolutely.
what that means for us. And so, when you're going after that high performing network of who within your bubble, or your secondary bubble, so to speak, right? You've got your first connections, and then who might be outside of that. Who's a really big person you can aim for to get into that circle, learn from them. And again,
Yeah.
going back to the resilience and doing the hard work of being able to connect with them, understanding what they want to do in this life, or what they've done in this life, and then how you apply that to you.
Yeah.
It's been an invaluable experience for me, trying to just push my own limits and push my own boundaries. One, not only by practicing resilience, but by putting my sights on some pretty big people out there who could be a huge lift in connection in terms of what I want to be able to accomplish in this world.
Well, I really noticed that about you. I've been following you for a while. I know we're friends on LinkedIn, and I love the fact that you always have this gratitude jar on Thursdays, and you have this thankful Thursday. And I know that you not only reach and dream big, which is one of my favorite topics. I've had people ask me, how did you get this person on your podcast? And I'm like, I asked. I think you just have to dream big, and you have to just go for it. And the worst anyone could say is no, but you're already at the no if you don't ask. So is there any other final hacks or tips or anything you want to leave our audience with about being unstoppable that we haven't touched upon yet?
I think that the formula for being unstoppable is just continuing to be yourself, right? And the reason I say that, and I know, everyone says that, but you can only define what unstoppable means for you, right? So at least unstoppable means one thing for you, and it means another thing for me. And so continuing to lean into your values, right? That's a lot of that I talk about, not only in my personal coaching, but I do some consultancy on the side with some other professionals, and just really maintaining alignment to what it is that's most important to you. Because when you figure out those values that are most important to you, you can then align all of your actions and those big decisions that that bring an amount of uncertainty to us.
Yes.
But if you're aligned to those values and you know what you want, and if you think a big decision isn't going to fit with what you're comfortable with, what brings you joy, then don't do it. And by definition, it seems counterintuitive, but don't do it, because then that makes you unstoppable. If you walk into something that you knowingly, or maybe unknowingly, aren't aligned to who and what you are, that's when we stop ourselves, because that's when we feel fear. That's when we feel discomfort. That's when we feel that all of that uncertainty is because we've stepped a little bit outside of what is most important to us.
Yeah.
And we don't know where to go from there.
I love it. You bring up values and aligning your actions with your values. I hope you guys are taking notes out there because this is like a really important thing. Because I know for me, anytime that I've ever not really listened to my gut and done something that it's like, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And you get in trouble with actions like that. If I could take it back and going forward, I think, especially for women, come on, listen to your gut. What
Yeah.
Oprah would say, your gut instinct, and align your actions with your values. And where can people find more of your awesome sauce, Lauren?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm big on LinkedIn. So if you just look for Lauren Ammon, you will find me. And then, of course, laurenammon.com. So one thing I will say is if you go into my website right now, it's under construction. It's going through a lot of rebranding. So as you mentioned earlier, I am transitioning into the world of athletes. So we're doing some things behind the scenes and all that big reveal will be coming soon. But those are the best two places to reach me. All of my contact information is there.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for coming to Whole CEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.